Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a privilege to be here today at such a powerful conference. So we are from the University of Westminster, and we're going to be sharing the work that we're doing on the foundation programme on a particular module called Critical Thinking for Academic and Professional Development. And we'll be sharing 3 lessons in particular that we've learned from our journey of decolonising this module and decolonising the learning environment on the module. So the University of Westminster, just to give you some quick context, is in the heart of London. We're a very diverse institution with respect to our students. We are considered a majority-minority student based on our student ethnicity. So I'm Dr. Moonisah Usman. I'm a lecturer in the Centre for Education and Teaching Innovation. I am Pakistani by background, but I grew up in South London. I'm also a mother, and my pronouns are she, her. And I lead the Critical Thinking for Academic and Professional Development module, which is where this work is situated.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name's Amy. I am a white Australian mother living in London. I, like Moonisah, am also a lecturer in the Centre of Education and Teaching Innovation at the University of Westminster. So, like Moonisah was saying, the module that we're going to be talking about today specifically is Critical Thinking for Academic and Professional Development, and this is within the foundation pathways at the University of Westminster. So it was through working with Moonisah that I was initially introduced to social justice, as well as working, these rich sort of student-staff partnerships, and the power of co-creation, and applying these aspects to a life sciences curriculum in order to sort of engage in anti-racist practices.
Hello everybody, good afternoon. My name's Lara. I am a BSc Biomedical Science student, first year at the University of Westminster. Last year I did a foundation year, and that's where I met both Moonisah and Amy, as they were my lecturers, on the critical thinking module Moonisah just mentioned. And it was both of them who really engaged me and inspired me to critically analyse my own practices and look into decolonising. And outside of my studies, I also work part-time as a healthcare assistant as well, so kind of bringing that in as well.
Thank you so much, Laura. So we believe that education should be through and for social justice. And at Westminster, when Amy and I work together, we try and embed our pedagogical practices in principles of social justice. So we try and work with our students and colleagues in a non-hierarchical way, make way for compassion. We try to dismantle deficient narratives of students, particularly on the foundation programmes, and to focus on supporting our minoritized students. So in this way, we strive to create an education that is democratic, but also encourages and equips students to make social change. And we are reminded, as Tuck and Young remind us, social justice is the ghost in the machine of the educational apparatus. It is the only part that makes any part of the field of education matter. Our work is driven by 3 issues. The first is the awarding gaps, also known as attainment gaps. It's the difference in the proportion of first or 2-1 degrees being awarded to different groups of students, with the biggest gap existing between students of different ethnicities, and particularly affecting black students at 18.4%. Now, data from Advanced HE indicates that even when we control for institutional factors like subject area, mode of study, or individual factors like age, gender, disability status, socioeconomic background, and prior attainment, there is still an unexplained gap which exists between students who are racialised as white and students who are racialised in non-white categories. So it's this unexplained gap that has been reported by Higher Education Statistics Agency since 2002 that is rooted in systemic or structural racism. And it reminds us that it's the system and not the student that's the root of the problem. And in a similar vein, structural racism reinforces racial health inequalities in society. So the pandemic, for instance, highlighted the disproportionate impact on Black and South Asian communities. So whilst people from racially minoritized groups constitute 14% of the UK population, they accounted for 34% of patients who were critically ill with COVID-19 in 2020. Again, we know that the problem is not with brown or black bodies, but with the system itself. And these issues encourage us to reimagine how we support racially minoritized students and how we equip them to make social transformation. So what do we mean by education through social justice? This is about making our educational spaces, learning and teaching practices more equitable and socially just. To us, this means we must address how structures, classrooms and curricula invite, engage and support racially minoritized students. Education for social justice is how the curriculum and teaching practices work towards creating a more socially just society. So more specifically for us, this is about engaging in anti-racist work and addressing issues of health inequalities with our science students. Ultimately, we feed that the two of these feed into each other, as we believe what we do in our classrooms, how we work with students, the problems we address together should mimic the kind of practices and change that they make in society. So we've tried to consider both of these aspects on our module. Now, decolonising the learning experience is at the heart of this work. We can't have these conversations or engage in this work without decolonising the curriculum. What we mean by decoloniality, we are inspired by Maldonado and Torres, who say decoloniality refers to efforts at rehumanising the world, to breaking hierarchies of difference that dehumanise subjects in communities and that destroy nature, and to the production of counter-discourse, counter-knowledges, counter-creative acts, and counter-practices that seek to dismantle coloniality and to open up multiple other forms of being in the world. And for this approach, we focus on three particular aspects: building relationship and shared meaning with students through creating decolonial and principled spaces, student partnership by doing co-creation activities with students, and explicitly teaching critical thinking. And we'll tell you more about the three of those. But first, Lara will talk to you about what race has to do with science. So we feel that we cannot embark on this work without engaging with what race has or hasn't to do with science.
Very exciting. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Moonisah. So as Moonisah just said, we need to teach science students about race biology. And the reason why we put this towards the beginning of the workshop was because this is actually what, as students, were first taught on the critical thinking module. So the fact I'm going to share with you all is that we share 99.9% of our DNA, regardless of your race, ethnicity, where you're from. That part of our DNA is identical. It's actually only 0.1% of our DNA that is different. So of that 0.1% of our DNA is different. But one of the questions we actually got asked in the module, and this is a slide directly taken from the lecture slides, is how much of our DNA constitutes our visible physical characteristics. So for example, nose, hair colour and skin colour. I'm aware a lot of you might be kind of science students in the room, but can I get a hand up if you think they're 0.1%? A, if you think it is, put your hand up. B, 0.05. And so that means you all think C, 0.02. Okay. So, yeah, the actual answer that the majority of you got was C, 0.02%. And so it's this tiny, tiny percentage that codes for the characteristics that is often used to racialise people. Another question, again, that was posed to us in the first lecture of the critical thinking module was we were showing these pictures, 3 scientists, who do you think will be genetically similar? So we have James Watson, he's an American. We have Venter, he's also an American, both white American. And then we have Kim, who is Korean. I'll give you a few seconds to think about it on a DNA level. Who do you think is more likely to be similar? Okay, and then if I'm ready to move on to the answer. So there was actually more similarity between Kim, who is Korean, and Watson, and then Kim and Venter, who are the white Americans, than there were between the 2 white Americans. You can see that the fact that they share a greater number of alleles. Okay, and then I'll move on to Amy.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, so so this is what we've sort of been teaching to our students as well, which is, I think it's important for you guys to get a taste of what we do here. But in order to have these discussions about race and racism, we need to create these decolonial spaces that are grounded in principles of trust, respect and shared commitment to social justice. So we found that forming democratic and relational student-staff partnerships allow us to do the work towards decolonialising education. So student partnership is an invaluable way, as some of you may have already come from the last talks that we had about student partnership. You know, it's an invaluable way to work with students and shift those traditional power dynamics that we have in the classroom. And in the discipline of science, there isn't always the space in order to sort of establish these relationships and have those conversations. And so I'm just sort of going to share with you how we've done that with the students. You know, student partnership, it allows us essentially to create these decolonial spaces and to do the anti-racist work together. So we're informed by our understanding of student partnership essentially is informed here by the NUS Manifesto for Partnership, but also we're guided by the student partnership framework from the University of Westminster, which essentially encourages us to reflect on our motivations and our values that are sort of driving our understanding of partnership and what partnership means to us. So fundamental to this approach is allowing students to lead these inquiries, you know, and these conversations that we have within our critical thinking module over several weeks. So it's also important for us as the tutors to acknowledge that this is a learning journey for us as well. So, you know, we share this learning and teaching journey with the students, you know, in order to make that truly, you know, a partnership here. And this is where these partnerships are so rich that, you know, the students provide the knowledge through their lived experiences. They're making these stories, and this makes it much more representative as well. So our role as a tutor is to create a space to explore the nuances of the problem and respond by adapting and evolving the following subsequent seminars as well. So just to sort of give you a bit of context about the module, the Critical Thinking for Academic and Professional Development module that we teach, the first iteration of this module was co-created with students. So the students were invited to co-create the curriculum by contributing to themes and ideas for the lectures and the seminars, and also co-creating the marking rubric. And we've continued that theme, specifically encouraging the students to contribute to the materials that we will deliver in the lectures that will also feed into their assessments. In particular, we have a critical assessment, critical writing assessment, which they contribute the themes to. So we also place an emphasis within our seminars in co-creating a space where these traditional classroom power dynamics essentially dismantled. So our intention is to co-create a classroom where students can comfortably share their experiences, their lived experiences and stories, be respected and heard. So this space is an opportunity for students to bring their whole selves and into the classroom to share their knowledge and to be critical of subject knowledge whilst reflecting on their values and bias as well, identifying bias within the life sciences. And also just to sort of give you a bit more context about the module itself, we have 1 hour lectures and then 2 hour seminars. And these 2 hour seminars are really essential in order for us to create this authentic, principled space for this co-creation to occur. So we're inspired by the BARC Collective, so the Building and the Anti-Racist Classroom. And one particular principle that I want to share with you is, and that draw attention to, is that believe people's accounts of their experiences of marginalisation and honour people's vulnerability by not disputing their lived experience. And this is what we really try to create within our seminars as well. It's important as well that, you know, the discussion and the debate helps us move away from that Eurocentric epistemology. It's really important as well that we give that space for the students to share their experiences, but we are not dictating what they learn. It's them navigating the narrative, essentially, and this is really important for us, but also for the students as well. It's important for us to highlight that the students are the experts of their own experience as well. And I need to highlight as well that we don't just dive into this, in week one. This is something that we've established over time. It's really important that it's about building these relationships, developing that trust as well. So we need to focus on how we create this and build those relationships with the students. And it's not just the students and the staff, but it's also with the students and themselves. So we need this time in order to create this principled space. So one of the ways that we've done this, and Lara's going to talk more about this, is we've started earlier by introducing icebreakers.
Thanks. So, as Amy just said, to build a sense of shared purpose, we used our icebreakers. Now, they're very kind of simple tools that we all know that can be adapted to become highly effective. So the practice starts in the first semester before we've even began the critical thinking module, which takes place in the second semester. So us students are asked to share our expectations of university, what challenges we think we'll face, and that's kind of giving us an idea, this collective understanding of why we're all here and what we want to achieve. And in conversations about our culture, our background, were encouraged. The icebreaker up on the screen was called the social identity wheel, and it helped to structure those conversations and give students an idea of what to speak about, whilst also not being too restrained. So, and the idea of that is to create a shared commitment and a common good that binds us. And we found that it was important to create the space that's actually conducive to these conversations in order to make the stories representative of people's experiences. We are always reminded, and it is important to acknowledge that us, the students, are experts in our own experiences, that we should really actively listen and do our best to understand each other, and that then can only serve to facilitate further knowledge-to-knowledge exchange. And also remembering that no one person has all the answers, but what we can do is work together and listen to each other to then offer our own perspective and create a more holistic understanding. We've got a QR code up, and if you do want to scan that, it is a repository of all of the various icebreakers that we used that do feel free to, of course, integrate into your own practice. That would be great. Now, moving on to the first activity that we want you to get engaged in. So this is based around what we actually did in our seminars. So normally in our seminars, they're more based around the student experience, but of course we adapted it for today, and you normally have a few more questions. But we're going to give you, 4 minutes in total, to answer these questions. For question 1, how was your experience at university critically challenged your values? And that can be about teaching and or learning. So for question 1, one of you is going to be the talker, the responder, and then after a minute you're going to swap so the other person can be the responder. And then exactly the same for question 2. One will be the responder, one will be the listener, and then you'll swap. So you get to hear people's perspectives. So if you are able to find a pair, the person next to you, and
we'll
once you've
pair up, I think.
Some people might need to turn around, I think.
Yeah.
Have you got your phone?
Yeah, I've got my phone. I've just got the timer. Okay, is everyone clear about what you need to do?
Of course, yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Because I've got a timer here. I'm going to time you for 1 minute, and then I'm going to have to stop you, and then you're going to reverse the roles. And so one person will be listening, the other will be talking, and then reverse. And then we'll do that with the second question as well. Is everyone clear? All right. Okay, your minute starts now.
Because I'm saying, I think in future, perhaps it's easy to have encourage them to really listen and not to respond, because it's automatically
It's literally being pushed on.
to let them just keep going.
You could say that. Like the second question is something that I should say. Like
You could, or you could say with someone who's got intelligence instead of just listen for 4 minutes, person to have the chance to speak for 4 minutes. It's not wrong. I think we're doing really well. So we're doing really good time.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know where we're at.
Well, if we had more time, we could play There Is That Much Where You From.
We'll have to get that up though. Yeah.
I mean, that's go with it.
I don't know where we're at. Okay. And that's enough now? Okay. Right. So now if you can swap roles, and remember it's about sort of active listening as well. So rather than speaking with each other, it's not a conversation. It's one person listening, the other speaking as well. So now the other person will be talking while the other person will be listening. Okay. And 1 minute, go. Is that okay? I hope that's okay. She's got a really loud voice. And stop. Okay. Right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is the first person that was speaking is going to speak again, and this time it's going to be the question, how do you imagine a decolonised education looks? The other person will just be actively listening, and then after that minute we'll swap again, okay? Is everyone ready? Any questions? Okay, your minute starts now.
Ways of approaching the conversation.
Yeah, I think that we're okay then. Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you for asking. Oh. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay, and now we're going to pause and now swap the question around, please. Okay, so not swap, yeah, the other person who was listening before is now going to answer that question. Your 1 minute starts now. But also my brain is too befuddled on what you get. Thank you. Well, hopefully we get out. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and that's the end. Thank you. Your 1 minute is up now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So if I'm kind of going around the room, if you saw me wandering past, I kind of picked up some various themes that you all were discussing about. So I heard the word perspective come up a lot, and adopting new perspectives, but really also critically analysing why do we do things? Why is the marking rubric a certain way? Why is our assessment or teaching a certain way? And I also heard a lot of how it actually challenged your values from a personal perspective, but also from an educational perspective, and thinking how you can integrate that into your teaching and the student experience to change things. And I'm really hoping that by doing that activity, what we help to do is create a shared purpose for why we're all here today.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lara. Yeah. So, and then just sort of, I guess the last thread of what we're going to be talking about today is the importance of explicitly teaching critical thinking skills. And the reason that this is, for us, really fundamental is that there is an expectation that students, when they reach university, that these skills are already developed. And we find more and more that this isn't necessarily the case. So with that in mind, we know that critical thinking skills, these are fundamental to our development as learners, and as Bell Hooks reminds us, critical thinking is about having the language and frames of reference to examine one's life in depth, as well as the world around us, so we can ask questions about the things that we take for granted. So it's really important that we prepare our students not only for the module that we're teaching, but beyond that as well. And that's what a lot of the module that we're creating is about. It's not only the work that we do, but about sending our students forward better equipped in order to deal and to think critically about the life and society that we live in. So essentially, we're inspired. Let me go back. The way that we do this is through a toolkit approach, and we're inspired by Stella Cottrell. So there's 5 tools that we introduce to the students, and this is on a weekly basis. These are up here. So essentially, each week in the module, we sort of explore one of these tools with a case study that explores social justice or social injustice in many instances. So, the seminar space brings together the students and staff to essentially collectively develop these skills by learning with each other and challenging research. So together we explore these case studies that highlight the impact of systemic racial inequalities and microaggressions on the lives of racially minoritized people. So just some examples of the case studies that we've explored in our module as well. So the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on Black and Bangladeshi communities. We've also explored the increased rate of maternal mortality substantially affecting Black women. So we explore this dialogically through problem-posing education to develop critical consciousness, and this is really important because anti-racist pedagogy is more than about what is taught and extends to how the curriculum invites students to contribute actively as well. So, Moonisah, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Yeah, so we wanted to show you the case study that we use with students, and we deliberately give them one case study to focus on through the first half of the semester rather than several, to give them more time and space to explore the nuances of the problem, take the medical problem and relate it to social context and race. So here you can see it reads more like a story, and it's been inspired by research evidence. And I know we have some midwives in the room, so you would have heard of the maternal mortality report by Embrace, which highlights that Black women in the UK are 4 times more likely to die during childbirth. But it also taps into those daily experiences, those microaggressions. For instance, Jamila here describing that her hair was touched without her permission. So the idea is that students apply those critical thinking tools to the problem through several weeks. And as we do that, we experience several tensions in the classroom. So we do have lots of moments of awkward silences. We also have moments where everybody sort of erupts all together. And we take the time and space to challenge misconceptions that can often stem from a colourblind ideology that's been instilled in us from the British education system. So we encourage students to critique evidence-based research articles, but we also introduce them to non-academic sources and voices and create space for them to share their experiences. So for instance, we discuss the intentions and the problems that surround the typical question, where do you come from? Okay, and we've facilitated this through the infamous exchange between Lady Hussey, Ngozi Fulani, but also Riz Ahmed's poem, Where Are You From?, which is really powerful, and I strongly encourage you to look at that on YouTube. So through this way, they develop their own critical thinking tools to take beyond the classroom and to be able to apply that to different academic problems, but also non-academic issues.
Yeah. Okay, so we've just sort of got to wrap up now, really. So, Lara, did you want to add something here?
So, as it says, our work to decolonise our approach is ongoing. And from my personal experience, what I gained from the critical thinking module and all the work that Moonisah and Amy have done is that really I need to kind of look into my own biases and also the research that I'm reading to actually challenge what I'm reading and what that actually means, and critically analysing it, thinking is science truly objective, and then hopefully bringing that into my future studies and also my future work as well to actually hopefully bring about change.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, yeah, and again, you know, it's about decolonisation needs to go beyond the classroom and extend to the discipline itself, which is what we're trying to do and feed through into our students, and also consider how do we humanise students. So I've just got a quote here from Singh from 2020. Some argue that actively recognising the underlying beliefs, assumptions and values that underlie the production of scientific knowledge may help us to produce science that is transparent and trustworthy. And I think this is, for us as life sciences as well, we have a duty to do this. You know, we make the choices about the topics that are worthy to engage with, which methodologies and whom we include in our research journey. So we need to take that on board and consider that as we move forward. So engaging with our subjectivities allows us to analyse and critique them to do science that is more transparent, and allows us to build these transdisciplinary connections, develop holistic understandings and solutions to scientific problems. So sort of through humanising, we find friendships and joy and working in solidarity towards a positive and lasting change. Yeah.
So we're still grappling with the question of how we humanise science, but we know that the answer lies in decoloniality, interdisciplinarity and working together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we've got